Welcome back to another podcast. We are live. We got my good friend Dakota. We couldn't do this without Dakota. In fact, I did it last week and it just wasn't the same. Didn't feel the same. Dakota, how are you living?
I'm living all right, brother. I'm out here working hard, just like everybody that enjoys our show, and I'm happy to be here as always.
Give us your thoughts on boots. I feel like you're gonna have strong opinions. The title of the show is Jaron Boots Ennis, best in the world, question mark. Follow up that statement with an essay response question like you were in 10th or 11th grade, and this is an English class.
It's too early to make that type of decision for me. His best win is still a Montestanionis, and I think, um, having not seen much of Lima prior, there was more question marks for me. I think you felt like it would be competitive, and seeing his awkwardness on tape in the lead up, I saw what you were seeing, but in retrospect, I think it was a bit of a mismatch. I think Boots looked strong in the new weight class, right? He's been talking about it for years, moving up, and then it just doesn't happen, and you get flatter performances. And here we saw an explosive and assertive Boots that took this guy out in a minute and a half. I don't know if he's the best in the world. We haven't seen him in with the other best in the world competitors, but I certainly think it was a good entrance to the division. But one of the things that we had talked about, right, was when you have a fight like that, that in retrospect was a bit of a mismatch. It feels like a waste of a training camp in a young fighter's prime. And, it's ultimately the camps and sometimes it's the camps and not the fights, that take the most out of a fighter. And so I wonder at times, why not? Like, what's the hesitation with just tossing the guy in the deep end? I get that, they're gonna make Virgil next, but I wonder, when you think long term, as you try to go through a fighter's career, do you really want to be wasting a camp like that when you really have a guy that's special?
I mean, that's kind of the conundrum, right? Is what's going on? Because it really feels like, and I think that this performance to me, and I'll speak on my piece, felt like a Roy Jones performance to me. And I know people have compared Boots to Roy, but this guy to me, Lima, was this very serious opponent. He's given guys fits. Yes, he's not coordinated or quote unquote athletic, but he was a very tough, durable guy. And what I saw was the blinding hand speed, the talent, the physical attributes overwhelm a guy who came to win, a top contender. And I think it speaks to Boots' greatness where he beats a top contender and people are like, man, what a mismatch. What a bad fight. Yet at the same time, I can understand why people say that because we want to see him in with the very best fighters because we're wondering, is this guy like a Roy Jones type fighter?
It also just gives me flashbacks of Tank where like Eddie's in the ring after the fight talking about like this is the future of boxing. Well, if that's the future of boxing, then he doesn't need a tune-up. He doesn't need a warm-up. And I'm not saying that the guy wasn't a contender, but I could name probably 12 other guys in the division that I would have been thrilled to see him in with for the first time. It's a very, very deep talent-rich division, and he didn't go with any of those guys. And that's more so what I'm talking about was, the talk about Tank was he's a pound for pound great. He's the future of boxing. Okay, then why are we still in the kiddie pool here at times where it feels like we're marinating towards something? Or is this just, are these the fights that you're interested in?
It's definitely like, I think that in a perfect world, we'd see him return in 2025 and get one more fight in. We know that the world's imperfect and that's more than likely not going to happen. 2026 is Boots' year, is what I feel. The way I judge his career will be strictly around 2026. The fights he takes, the opposition, the willingness to, because now we've, it's not like, I know that everyone's jumping to Virgil Ortiz. Virgil has a fight with Erickson Lubin. That's a good fight. We
Yep.
can't overlook Lubin. I don't like the idea of people overlooking Lubin. And on top of that, Virgil's given us a lot of badass fights. Virgil's consecutively just taken fights that I don't
That's
see.
when you really compare that entrance to the new division between the fights that Virgil has taken, it's just been Madrimov and Boachuk, and
Well,
now
he
it's going
took
to be
Delorme,
Lubin.
I think, right? Wasn't Delorme in the weight class? Like, I think he had two.
Maybe it was.
He had,
Yeah.
was it Frederick Lawson, Delorme, and then he just jumped in. So, to be fair, maybe Boots does the same thing, but we gotta
Sure.
see
That's
how
a
it
good point.
plays out. You know, I just like I think that Boots is not a talkative guy, and he doesn't do a lot of media per se. And I think that when guys aren't talkative and they're like, I want to show my work in the modern era, people are like they're hiding. And I think Boots' side never really gets said because they're just kind of old school gym guys. That's just,
Sure.
I think that the old school nature of the team. I think he's one of the best guys. I think based on the eye test, him and Virgil really stand out to me, and Jesus Ramos. Those are the guys that really pique my interest. Beckham is really interesting. Fundora is really interesting. Xander's really interesting. I want to see those guys fight each other. You know, I want to see those matchups. So next year, there's really no reason we don't see Boots in a
The good
fight.
news is the guys at 154 give them to you. You know, that's one thing you have to be able to say about this weight class is the guys are fighting. And that's another reason why I'm excited to see Boots just get thrown into that mix of a pack of really talented guys.
So, okay, let's talk about it like this. If Boots Ennis is the best fighter in the world next year or in the top 5 pound for pound, would that shock you?
Yeah, it would. We've yet to see him sustain a level of activity, you know, that I feel like could get him to that place. So it would surprise me. It'd be a pleasant surprise though, because I'm a big fan.
Definitely think he's someone that can grow the sport. I feel like if he goes on a sustained run, we talk about guys that have crossover star appeal. This is someone that I feel people that don't watch boxing he kind of gives me like an Allen Iverson feel in the sense that like people that didn't watch basketball loved Allen Iverson. They wanted to see, oh, put the Iverson game on. Maybe I'm a little older than most people listening, or maybe I'm right age. Boots has an element that I'm feeling where people want to see Boots fight. Not sure if you okay, you didn't freeze.
No. I'm here. There's a lot of it that reminds me of Tank, and hopefully we can get, you know, the substantive fights to follow.
It's a big word. I'm not sure I fully know that word, but I like it. I'm gonna roll
There you
with
go,
it. I
Bob.
know. I'm
Fucking
gonna
learning
add
shit every day, dude.
learning stuff. I think Lima also. I don't love the idea of just crapping on Lima. This is a guy that pulled off 3 upset wins on the road. Yes, they weren't at Boots Ennis's level.
I'm not crapping on anybody, bro. I'm saying if they really think they got a pound for pound guy, then the number 8 guy is a mismatch. You know
Well,
what
and
I mean?
that's where we're getting is the kid is so special. We need to see him in with the top guys.
That's what I'm
And if
saying.
he's not in the top guys, he's graded differently, right? So there's all these different levels to grading a fighter. And I think Boots is now approaching that, you know, a fighter that we have ambitions of, are you a Hall of Fame trajectory fighter?
Yeah.
And when you enter that conversation, you need to beat fellow Hall of Fame
And the
level
people
fighters.
around you are claiming that you're that as well.
Well, I think that the kid in the gym is probably something special to see because there's too many people saying when they see him in the gym, it's incredible. It's pretty like I was thinking about this last night. Has Philly ever, outside of Joe Frazier, had a guy that like the whole city like backed? Like, did Bernard ever have a run where the Philly was completely behind Bernard?
I think Philly was always relatively behind Bernard, but he was also a little bit of like an underground king because there wasn't like the flash. He was from a different generation and a different time, and he was a little more subdued in
Because it impresses me that a guy's coming from Philly that's a boxing rich city and like the whole city's back in Boots. Like that means something. Like he's the representation of Philly boxing. If you
and I'll be
were
honest, bro, I wasn't 100% confident in that because I was at the Stanionis fight in Atlantic City, right? And it's like we're an hour away from Philly, and like there was some seats open. It was like a good crowd, but it wasn't like the packed house. It didn't feel like, you know.
I'm saying the gyms. It feels like the guys in the gyms 100% are like, we got to get our guys around Boots. We got to test our guys against Boots. It seems like Boots is the standard there, and that's something special. Let's go to what you want to talk about. Guido Vianello, our guy. What did you think?
it's been a fun journey with Guido, man. And at the beginning of his career, I think, you know, he was still in that amateur style. He was a little bit of what you might call like a twinkle toes, right? He was bouncing around a lot. He wasn't sitting down on his punches. And it's been up and down, and he's picked up losses along the way. But one thing about Guido, man, is he wants it. He stays engaged. He comes off of losses with a level of ferocity, and has taken a volume of quality competition now where it's like there really is something to this guy. And I always thought there was substance to Guido, but I don't know that I ever thought that he'd be like a come forward power puncher, sit down on your shots. Because I was impressed with Barriere the first couple of times that I saw him. I really was. I thought he had good footwork. I thought he was a good mobile, modern heavyweight that could be a guy. And
still could be, by the way. Still could
be, by the way. I think he's a really talented guy, but Guido just was a little bit pedal to the metal. And even in, you know, he's reaching over the front foot, and he's hittable at times, and he overcommits at times, but he's like weirdly accurate. And now that he's really sitting down on his shots and using his size and the tenacity that he has, the desire he has, he's like a real contender, bro.
Well, I was thinking about like how oftentimes people don't think fighters are good because they lose. He loses to Torres earlier this year, close fight, but also Torres is really good. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't give.
I don't
Torres
even know for me if it was the losing. It was just an ugly fight where I didn't feel like either guy was able to assert a thing. And so it was just disappointing on both of those levels. And so you wonder for the loser of a fight like that, right? Because Richard just proved to be more resourceful, right? He was just
a will to win. Like, guys that want to win tend to win those ugly, crappy fights.
And Richard was that guy that night. So there was, you know, it leaves some more questions about Guido because he was coming off the Makhmudov fight where he gets a knockout and everything. It's like, you know, is this and there still is that question, right? Is he going to be a seesaw? Is there going to be highs and lows? But, you know, he has a tenacity to him, man.
I mean, now he has two really good wins, Makhmudov, and now he beat an undefeated prospect going in on the B side. Really interesting career trajectory. I saw one take on Twitter. I wish I remembered the user's name, but kind of like questioning, does Guido have a better resume than Richard Torres? I would argue that Torres's resume got better because he won this, because Torres holds the victory over him. What are your thoughts on that? I thought that was an interesting comment.
I mean, cumulatively, Guido has taken significantly more world-class competition than Richard.
Our guy Will, very good win for Guido. Hope he gets a big fight next. I mean, he deserves one. Taking a risk like that.
What's the big fight for him? Because he's already been in big fights. So what's the, you know, coming off a comeback win, what is the big fight for him?
To me, it's Joshua.
Is that going to happen, though? Is that appealing enough to get Joshua, you know, like, what does that do for Joshua, I'm saying?
Well, I think, and look at the chat, our guy Mankey Crazy said, welcome back, Dakota. The listeners missed you, bro. They missed you. I think that Joshua's going to he's been out of the ring for a whole year. You think he'd jump into a big marquee fight off of a year ring rust? I think he's going to
I think he would jump in with a guy that's a bigger name and less of like, I think he'd take a Chisora, or I think he'd take a Joe Joyce, or I think he'd take something in that ilk. I think Guido is too high risk, low reward.
For me, if we were doing like kind of a fight I'd like to see, would be Guido versus Joshua, because Guido's earned a fight like that with the risks he's taken. He's like, if Joshua's still the guy, Joshua probably wins that fight. But it also answers questions about both guys. Can Guido keep doing this and prolong his career and take interesting fights? And can Joshua truly be a world-class fighter? So for me, Guido versus Joshua is the fight I'd be interested in.
I'll tell you what fight I'd like to see is Guido and Jared Anderson. I wanted to see that fight a couple of years ago, and at the time the trajectories were so different that I think people thought it was like a mismatch for Jared. But that's a fight I'd like to see now. And I think it's a fight that Guido would be the favorite.
We got to see if Jared comes back, man, because he fought in February. Really, we haven't heard anything of him coming back. We got to see like how long his hiatus is, because it feels like he's taken time to himself. and we got to see where he's going, because it just seems like he's not in the gym the way he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Don't you get that same vibe?
For sure. It's still one I'd like to see if Jared wanted to be a competitor, a serious competitor.
Let's just run through this undercard real quick. Some of my notes, and then we'll go to do you want to go to the hot button topics? I got two gossipy hot button issues, or do you want to run real quick through this undercard?
Gossipy?
Yeah. Do you want to do the gossip?
What are we talking about, buddy?
Okay, here we go. We're going into it. Fundora versus Thurman is off.
Yes,
the pay-per-view is now postponed, I believe is the official word. Basically October 25th, no pay-per-view between the two. Fundora out with an injury. What are your thoughts, Dakota?
I'm just shocked that it wasn't Keith with the injury. That's all I could say, bro. I really, I'm sad the fight's not happening. I liked the matchup. I liked seeing the idea of seeing Keith back in a world-class fight for the first time in 3.5 years. I liked everything about it, bro, and I'm bummed it's not happening. But there is an irony to the fact that it's not Keith who's injured.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange time, right? Because it's like it's a pay-per-view fight. It didn't scream a pay-per-view fight to me. It felt like just a really good matchup. I'm a sicko, so I was gonna buy the fight regardless. But it just screamed of being an interesting fight to see if Fundora could be like a new era guy. Thurman, to be honest, I just feel like inactivity and injuries have delayed and stagnated his career. I'm not even sure if he's a Hall of Fame fighter yet, which is going to lead into our next topic. But really just the inactivity and out of sight, out of mind with Thurman has really kind of dimmed my interest in him, because it feels like all the guys of Thurman's era have now retired or about to retire. And Thurman's relatively still going because he just didn't have as many fights as those guys.
Yeah, that's always been the issue with Keith, man. There's going to be, when Keith decides to wrap it up one day, there will be the what could have been. And I think that'll be the biggest thing with Keith. But I think the way he closes out his career is also going to be a piece of that. If he were able to come back and beat Sebastian Fundora for all of the inactivity and all of the injuries and all of the what ifs with Keith, I think that he would continue to, grow his legacy.
What was your prediction for that fight if it were to happen?
I mean, I just think Fundora was going to be too much length and too much volume. And I seeing Keith get hit against Jarvis and seeing, how he started that fight. I feel like if he started a fight like that with Fundora, there would be more consequences. So I was definitely leaning towards Fundora, but I'm also not somebody to count Keith out, man.
I get you. So the unfortunate for me, the byproduct is our guy Shock Foster. Once again, his fight is delayed. I think this is like the second or third time that fight with Fulton's delayed. I mean, it's like, did Fulton or Shock break a mirror? Because it just feels like this fight should happen. It feels like a fight that's makeable. Both guys take fights, and yet it just keeps getting thrown on the back burner.
I didn't know that been made prior.
I'm pretty sure it was rumored to be made prior, and then it had never been officially announced, and now it's just kind of going on and on and on. Shame for Shane Mosley Jr. and Jesus Ramos too. Both of those guys have really worked hard. Mosley reinventing himself in the second half of his career. Jesus Ramos is one of the most exciting up and comers, and it just feels like it's another year where it's like they're just, it just drags along. They're not kind of, activity is crucial in the sport, and it feels like a guy like Jesus Ramos, I just wish he could have 1 year where he's just fighting a lot.
Yeah. There's been a lot of lost time with Jesus, unfortunately, and a lot of people at BBC.
The next one that I want to talk about, I want to get your opinions. There are people saying Golovkin is not a Hall of Famer. What are your thoughts on Golovkin being on the Hall of Fame ballot and your views on this?
I think Golovkin's 100% a Hall of Famer. Offhand, I don't know who else was nominated, so I would be another is it's like the argument of, is he first ballot or is he a Hall of Famer? He's most definitely a Hall of Famer. I think it would be a goofy argument to say that he's not a Hall of Famer, whether or not he's more qualified as a Hall of Famer than some of the guys on the list. I know Tarver was on the list. You know, I know Fernando was on the list. There was guys on there that had storied careers and had monumental moments in the sport. Israel Vasquez, I'm guessing, would have been on there. So, you know, there's other guys that I feel like deserve their spot too and have waited longer. But I have no doubt that Golovkin's a Hall of Famer.
So this is the way I look at it, right? There's two ways I look at it. The difference between Hall of Fame and GOAT is different. The difference between Hall of Fame and all-time great is different. Those conversations are different. Golovkin to me is a no doubt Hall of Famer. Is he the all-time great? I'm not sure. Is he a GOAT? I'm not sure. These conversations are different.
He's a top 10 middleweight of all time. No, I mean,
well, and look at how many years he held the belt. Like, an argument people are saying is, what Hall of Famers did he beat? It's kind of like the argument people use against like a guy like Chad Dawson. Chad might not have beat, like, quote unquote, all the Hall of Famers, but how many guys didn't want to fight Chad during Chad's prime run when he was like doing what he was doing?
Sure. And like, he still beat Danny Jacobs. He still got a draw with Canelo. You know, there were fights in his career that were meaningful.
Now, this offhand, and this is purely speculative, but I believe he was he had 8 years of title defenses and an 8-year knockout streak or something like that, like a multi-year. Yeah. That goes down to my thesis argument that a Hall of Fame fighter typically is someone you could be at the bar and you make a statement about their, like, some stat, and it amazes people. And like that, not like if you say this guy was a world champion and he knocked guys out for this amount, like the fact that he knocked out Martin Murray, who basically made a career out of not getting stopped, that alone is pretty special. So to me, it's just a non-issue amongst.
Look what he did to Daniel Gill.
Yeah, and Daniel Gill had just come off a fight with Felix Sturm, and it was like a really exciting back and forth fight. But to me, it's a great way to say that, like, you're more into the let's make a controversial opinion part of boxing than let's look at, because if you're a boxing guy, right, Golovkin was one of these special fighters. Now,
I mean, but I'm seeing people make the argument that Vernon Forrest is not a Hall of Famer, and that blows my mind. I mean, I can't even. That kind of blows my mind, bro.
I mean, to me, it's just coming down to, I guess we should set a thesis argument for the show. What is a Hall of Famer in our opinion? In my opinion, it's someone that if you were to teach the sport of boxing, they deserve a chapter in a book. And Vernon Forrest deserves a chapter in the book. Golovkin deserves a chapter. It's like these are the pillars of boxing at certain points. Certain eras defined it. Golovkin was there, you know, and I think that we're in a weird era where irrelevant people are more relevant than they should be. And people that didn't live through that last HBO run with Golovkin, they didn't see it. Or if they saw it, they were looking to find ways to not enjoy Golovkin rather than watching the fights. You know, like, there's a lot of fans who, and I don't get mad at fans because they're fans of the sport. They're just, they got strong opinions, right? But Golovkin had his, because here's the thing. I don't know if it's everybody, but U.S. fight fans hate being told stuff. So you tell them this guy Golovkin's great. You tell them this guy Lomachenko's great. You tell them Chocolatito's great. You're going to piss off 30% of people that even if they think he's great, they just don't want you to tell them that he's great. And they're going to be playing a detective to find every weakness in this guy to tell you how you're wrong just because they don't want you to tell them. And I think there is a little resentment because that final HBO era was a lot of kind of, look at how good Loma is. Look at how good Golovkin is. And I think it did rub people the wrong way because it was less, in my opinion, about calling the fights. There was a little bit of look at what you're seeing. Look at what you're seeing. This is special. And I think that some of that sentiment still lingers with people, that they didn't love the way that some of those fights were called.
I understand that, but I just, you know, if my childhood hero Arturo Gatti is in the Hall of Fame, I think Triple G belongs there too.
It's a good point. So Matchroom undercard, I'm going to let you take it. What did you see there?
That was Tahmir Smalls. He got a decision win. What was the opponent's name, Lukie? Can you remind me?
Jose Roman.
Yeah, Jose Roman. It was a close fight. It seemed like maybe Roman edged it out. I like Tahmir Smalls a lot, but it's a little one and done at times for me. And for all of the marveling over his reach, he does a lot of reaching. He does a lot of like reaching with his jab and kind of falling off balance, and he wasn't using his feet to get himself in position a lot of the time. And it felt like Roman was often able to capitalize on that. And even in getting dropped, Tahmir was not really able to capitalize that. And if anything, it felt like Roman won more rounds after the knockdown. So I'm not really sure what to make of the win. I think Roman's a really good fighter, so there's some of that. You just have to give him some credit. But it was surprising to see him do as much reaching as he did.
So I'd like to add to this. To me, Tahmir Smalls looks like he's a real big puncher who's been fighting guys that are a little below his level, and he's gotten used to just his power changing fights. And we saw some of the habits form from those developmental fights. To me, it's quite clear he hits hard. He does do that thing that I don't like that Adonis Stevenson did, where it looks like he's riding a longboard and he's doing the splits when he throws punches because he's trying to maximize his power. Think that he's got to improve from this to get to the next level, because this was a razor close fight. I thought Smalls just won it. I thought that it was very dangerous that he let Roman back into the fight.
It was a flip a coin. It was a flip a coin fight,
But the fact that he got the drop and the fight wasn't an easy fight to score in his favor, I think it should be concerning. Roman doesn't hurt him. Like, I think he's a guy that's going to pull off upsets and beat guys. Like, he has a perfect style to beat guys who sit down. I think Smalls is going to, if he doesn't work on things, always going to have trouble with guys who don't stand in front of him. I was a little
come to him, right? Doesn't it look like he just was having a hard time initiating offense? I felt like if Roman had been stepping to him, he probably would have gotten off more, but it just looked like he looked a little lost trying to figure out where to find his pockets against Roman.
Well, it looks like the way he fights looks like the way some guys spar, where they don't jab and they come in to bang with guys and give them hard rounds. And it just doesn't seem like a sustainable style at the highest level of the sport. Like, it looks like he's a very tough physical guy, capable of doing a lot of things, but it looks like he needs to fine tune some things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, let's say Hitchens goes to that division. Like, I don't think he's going to be able to. He's not going to be able to initiate, and he's getting now with his record. He's getting to that point of maybe getting. Like, I mean, who else is it? Welterweight. Welterweight's a little depleted, but like a lot of these guys, they're gonna be elusive. They're gonna pick the spots. And I think that, like you said, he's not a combination puncher. He lets a shot go.
One and done.
And it's like he needs to evolve as a fighter. I think there's tons of talent there. I think he's a good puncher, but he needs an evolution.
What's the style you'd try to evolve him to?
I think he needs to turn into like a Maidana. So like a high guard, 2 jabs, press forward, really work on cutting off the ring. And then when you're in position, try to let some damaging blows go. But I think he needs to, in my opinion, he needs to have something that keeps guys thinking, because there's times in a fight where guys get to take a break against him and go for walks. Like, Roman was able to buy his time and get back in the fight after getting dropped and hurt.
He doesn't push a tempo at all.
Well, if anything, he kind of does like he's playing hoop court basketball at the Y on Saturday. Like, he's kind of doing like a friendly, let's both go at a pace that we're very comfortable at, which I think in the future could actually be an issue, is if someone starts a pace quick on him, is he going to keep that pace up? Like, I think that when he gets to the next level, that could be a strategy we see thrown against him, is making him have to work at a pace he doesn't like. And the power, I think, is his X factor. He hits so hard, he's able to dictate the pace currently because of his power. So the power keeps people fighting at his speed.
Yeah, but even in this fight, it felt like Roman dictated some of the tempo.
Well, I think that's when the power went away. What other things did you see on this undercard?
That opening fight was interesting. It was definitely a young man who was doing a little too much clowning, and I think got in a little deeper than he was ready for. But an interesting fight, and I always admire two young unbeaten guys kind of risking it because there's so much of that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Dennis Thompson fought a composed fight, pretty clearly won the fight on my card. But
Yeah.
once again, it was kind of the same issue I saw with Tahmir Smalls. It's like there was this guy's moving and being evasive, and he was kind of letting him exit, So, but see, with Dennis, he's younger, so there's time to evolve. Tahmir's getting to the point of a title shot, so it's like he's got to fix those things. To me, I thought it was a good win, evenly matched. Kind of,
I just want to see some upper body movement from Thompson. He's very like high guard, stand there and catch punches. There's almost no upper body movement, and it allowed for a kid who was winging kind of wide, predictable shots to get some work in because he's got a guy in front of him that's just sort of there to take it.
Looked like Smalls too, though, right?
A little bit.
I mean, maybe that's just something that, they're both Philly guys. Maybe that's the style, is be physical, be tough.
It is and it isn't, though, because think about how many like elusive type guys, if it's Bernard.
I'm just saying maybe whoever's coaching or around them,
Yeah.
Maybe that's the style of a certain coach. Mankey Crazy, the knockdown gave the judges the excuse to give wide cards.
I think there's some truth to that. There was like a 7-8 point card, and it was like, I don't know, man. I felt like this was a pick 'em.
There was one youngster that really stood out to me. His name is Giorgio Visioli. He beat James Wilkins crunch time, who I think is a really, really good, tough veteran who can beat a lot of guys. And he dominated this fight. And I believe Sonny Edwards is in his corner. And rarely does a fighter from overseas come to America and catch my eye. This is a guy. This is something, bro. I don't know if you saw his fight, but
I didn't get to
he's
see
on
the
the YouTube
prelims,
portion. I would
unfortunately.
check him out. He looks like a TV fighter to me. He looks like a DAZN telecast level fighter. Also, I want to bring up Naheem Parker defeated a Philly fighter named Justin Palmieri in the first bout. So whenever someone pulls off an upset, we mention them on the show. Let's jump over to Arslanbek Makhmudov beating Dave Allen.
Yeah, it was a good win for Makhmudov, but it just feels like I've always enjoyed Dave Allen, but it just looks like even from round to round, his level of motivation and desire kind of goes up and down. And of course, there was the piece on Boxing Scene. He's talking about he can't wait to retire. It's just mentally too much of a roller coaster for Dave Allen. And even somebody who has shown a lot of vulnerability like Makhmudov is able to get through 2-point deductions and almost getting knocked out in the 9th round to ultimately win a pretty wide decision.
Yeah, I mean, I saw, I think that the appeal to Dave Allen is normally fighters are confrontational and don't let you in. And Dave is at times frazzled by the sport. He's had ups and downs. And I think the level of vulnerability with a comeback against Johnny Fisher, getting the knockout win, I think that it resonates with a lot of people that want to see the underdog do well. And even though he lost this fight, I feel as though he kind of kept his everyman's image because he almost stopped Makhmudov in like that 9th round. I think he punched himself out at the end of that round.
But if he was in a lot of ways, for me, that's where it comes up short. Like if he was the everyman champion, if he really was like the heavyweight Gabe Rosado, that's the kind of fight he wins.
I just think that, how do I say it? There's maybe, but it's like
he's not landing punches. He's just unable and unwilling to keep a tempo. And then he spends the first 4 rounds like hanging out on the ropes, catching punches on his gloves, trying to figure out if he wants it. And so I enjoy the everyman piece of Dave Allen, but I also, for me to be engaged in a fighter, I have to feel like they're engaged in the fight fully.
To me, I feel like there's years of not training seriously that affect his ability to throw punches. Because let's go into a Lukie theory. This is a Lukie theory that I'm going to give you right now. People can quote this from now on. Guys don't throw the jab enough because they're not in shape to throw the jab. So when guys aren't pumping a jab, one thing I always wonder is, did they condition themselves to throw punches, not condition themselves to be in shape, not condition them? And maybe it's just for me, but if I'm out of the gym, even if I'm in the gym for a year, it's hard for me to get the punch count up unless I specifically work on the punch count. And to me, it's like maybe he just did too many years of not working on that stuff, that even when you do it, you can't implement it or you can't trust it. So a part of what I saw in this fight was I saw a fighter that didn't fully believe he could throw 400 punches in a fight. Like there was a level of, because I'm a big double jab guy to get to the fighter, change levels, change speeds, double jab, throw something. Did that thing I hate, which is walk a guy down, no jab, just let me come in, man. I just want to come through that front door. And I will say Mark Ramsey is one of the best coaches in boxing. And if Mark Ramsey wasn't in Arslanbek's corner, I think he loses this fight. I think Mark Ramsey had Makhmudov fight a nearly perfect fight for his skill set. And he showed an improvement in more dimensions than he showed in the past, and a maturity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's Mark Ramsey. Because if you look at Mark Ramsey, Christian and Billy, awesome. All these guys he's working with fight in different ways. And Mark Ramsey, to me, is one of the best talent scouts in boxing. So to me, it was twofold. I think that the years of hard living caught up to Dave Allen in the fight in ways that he didn't know it would. And I think Makhmudov also fought his most mature fight against a limited guy, where he now makes me wonder, is he like Guido? Is he a guy who maybe can...
I don't see that. I think he's more vulnerable than that. I don't think he's as tenacious as that. And I think, top level guys are going to stop him. I just don't think Dave Allen had the steam or the desire to get it done.
So our guy Will, and man, Key Crazy, we're not ignoring you. We're going to get back. I just want to stay on this topic for the listeners so they can get it. I thought Allen could win if it went rounds, but he couldn't throw enough and seemed to lack self-belief. So Will saw kind of a combination of what we both saw, which is I saw the lack of punching. You saw the lack of self-belief.
Which led to the lack of punching. Because you have to some extent, if he spends 2-3 rounds at a clip, kind of be like, do I want to be here?
Let's go back to Mankey Crazy's questions. Aside from Boots, the Philly fighters struggled. Palmieri lost. We talked about that. Visioli and Zaquan Moses will fight. Moses already called out Visioli. The corner wanted to pull Allen after round 10. I think it was also interesting how they never pointed out that Allen was pretty clearly tiring at the end of the fight.
That was cooked.
It's like they're like, does he have it? And it just looked like he was running on fumes.
Nah, yeah, he was cooked, bro.
Here's a not so hot take that I think is true. Guido's fight was a higher level heavyweight fight than this fight that was a main event.
100%. And I also think Barriere would have beaten both of those guys.
Yeah, so that's our topic on this. Any fights on the undercard that stand out to you?
Was the Padley was on this undercard? Padley and Reece Bellotti. I love me a little Reece Bellotti, bro. I really do. Hate to see my boy lose another close decision. I kind of felt like he edged it, but Padley boxed beautifully. Like 8, 9, and 10, maybe 7 also. He closed the show strong, and it was close. I wasn't furious at the decision, but Reece, once again, a slippery, adaptable veteran who got the short end of the stick.
He's a guy that if you don't got it, he's gonna beat you.
Like, I know. He's a Maxie Hughes,
I was gonna say Rene Alvarado.
Sure.
Like he's a true veteran who's versatile. Also, Bilal Fawaz beats Junaid Bostan. It was a rematch of the January fight. Pretty ugly fight. Probably the highlight was Fawaz at the end of the fight, looking shocked that he won. I'm not sure if he was hamming it up or not, but they announced the scores weird, where it was like a draw was the first. They announced him being the person that one-on-one card. Then they announced a draw, and then they said, and for the winner, 96-94. So it was clear he won. And then like a second happened, and he looked shocked that he won. Probably a future trilogy. I don't see either guy really going beyond this level. Fawaz probably has a little bit more potential, but they're just kind of like evenly matched for each other. I think the big step back is Bostan was kind of someone that people had hopes could be an interesting character and go to that world level. But currently right now, he's a domestic level fighter. You and me don't look at that as any knock. But I think that does hurt some fight fans because they want a young kid from overseas to go to that world level.
Yeah.
So Red Owl had a fight card this weekend. I don't think we'll touch on it per se because we're kind of running over time, which is fine. I got to pull up my show notes because I got to remember what the fight of the week is. I guess the fight of the week really is Kieron Conway versus George Liddard, which is an interesting fight. I think it's a crossroads fight. What's your take on this one?
I haven't seen as much of Liddard. I have seen him, but what I do know about Kieron Conway is that he's in the mix of the middleweight division. He's definitely a contender. He's definitely a guy that I think would compete with anybody that you throw him in with. And so if Liddard is able to beat him, it puts him in a category of like an elite few guys because Conway's kind of proven to be more than a domestic level guy.
So Conway, I always say he doesn't fight like John Ryder, but he's kind of taken that role of like the guy that's in great shape, doesn't believe he's going to lose, takes fights against tough guys, probably is going to make you work harder than you expect. And Liddard is like a prospect contender with a shiny record, undefeated.
He's good. He's very talented.
But I'd also say with Liddard is he doesn't quite separate the way I hope just yet. Like he wins like these fights 97, 93, 98, 92. And you're saying, okay, he's winning. But it's like it feels at the level he's at. I'd kind of like to see some like 190s. This is a fascinating fight because there's a part of me that wonders, is Kieron Conway going to do it? Or is Liddard going to make the logical next step as a prospect to a contender? I'm kind of all in on this matchup. Not that it's like a sexy
jump
fight.
up in competition too, I would say, for Liddard. No.
Well, I think what it's signaling is in the gym, he must be the guy. Like there's enough confidence that he's people that know something are saying, okay, this guy could contend. But I think it's an interesting fight because if he wins this, he's in the mix with the title holders and the top guys, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think, especially since the ammo fight, Conway, he hasn't had another big fight, but he's been taking good level domestic fights where he's also getting stoppages now. Doesn't have a lot of knockouts on the record, but has gotten some knockouts in recent years, and I think is proving himself to be a legitimate top 10, top 15 middleweight.
To me, he's the classic overachiever who just works his butt off, and he like always looks like he's in phenomenal shape, and there's nothing about him that looks like amazing in the ring, but his weapon is that he trains hard, he comes to win, and he's tough and durable. And sometimes that's
he can mix it up too, and he can mix it up.
Well, I think he's getting better is the thing. Like since the ammo fight, he's really kind of started to become a guy on these Matchroom cards, and he's showed different dimensions. So it's kind of like, I wouldn't compare him to a Guido, but he's a guy that's learning on the job, and he's a guy that you don't worry about, is he in shape? Like this is a guy who's going to be in great shape come the workouts, in great shape when they weigh in. And that's a weapon, because there are guys that overtrain. Like I feel like he's got dimensions, but he's also a really strong physical guy who's going to make the weight. Now I'm going to curse myself and I'll miss it, right? But it's like he's going to come in, and he's a guy that, like, for young fighters, you really have to emphasize you can't disrespect this guy, because this is a guy that I think on paper you could look and be like, oh, I'm more talented than him, I'm going to outbox him. And you get in there and you feel like when he grabs you, it's a heavy man with a will to win. and you're like, wait, this isn't as easy as I thought.
Yeah,
So
he's
I
a
think
big guy. That jab's a little longer than I expected. He is adjusting a little more than I thought he might,
he's got sneaky good timing. I
Yeah.
think is something that I see. Like his punches look slow, but he's able to land and punch with guys. He's just a tough. So to me, this is a fun fight because Liddard seems to be a prospect Matchroom believes in. And if he can beat a fighter of this caliber, he's a guy.
Sure. I agree.
So
And then it's more than just the eye test. You have a top 10, top 15 guy on your resume.
and the undercard, kind of a fun undercard for me. I'm not sure if it's fun for you. I always love some Jimmy Sands. He's kind of a come forward guy. Really big fan. I don't know what the ceiling is for him, but he's a good action fighter.
I don't
feel
know Troy Coleman either.
Well, I'm going off the guys that I kind of stood out to me. So Luigi, what's his last name? Luigi Buttigieg has stood out to me. Taylor Bevan, there could be something there. And then I think that the fight of this night, if you're a big fan, Shannon Ryan, who I think has some star potential, taking on Chloe Watson, is a 50-50 contender fight. And I really think that Shannon Ryan has something there. The boxing, she kind of reminds me of my golf game. I can't quite put it together, but there's moments of brilliance. I think there's something there, but we got to see if it's.
Do you have moments of brilliance on the golf course?
Yeah, I've got moments, but it doesn't sustain. And it's like she'll look good in the fights, and then she'll get like dropped, or she'll have adversities. And to me, this is, if she's got it, this is a fight that maybe she can pull away with. So I kind of circled that as maybe that's going to be the fight of the month. Of those matchups, what stands out to you?
I think this is a highly domestic card. I think Jimmy Sands is probably the highlight for me. I thought last year he had a knockout of the year candidate type, where he just absolutely leveled a guy, and it was a gnarly enough of a knockout that it's made me kind of stick with his career. And there's been some level of up and down. There's been times where maybe he looks a little limited, but I think that there's still not limited. I think maybe at times like he's not able to adjust or to mix it up a little bit, but I think that there's something there.
Yeah, I'm always working on my prospects list, and I'm trying to figure out where Jimmy Sands fits on that. I'm trying to see if he's one of the guys. Next one, Danny Garcia returns. I believe it's his last fight. I think that's the kind of the thing. He's taking on Daniel Gonzalez, a kind of veteran of the New York boxing scene, trained there. It's two guys of the same age, same era. Danny Gonzalez never really got to the same level as Danny Garcia. It's a New York fight. It's taking place on millions.co. I don't really know if I have a feeling about this fight. What do you think, Dakota?
Yeah, I don't know what to feel about it either. And I also feel like anytime a guy tells you that it's their last fight, it's generally not a great performance. That's just a trend that always happens because there's, the end is near. And I think there's probably, if you've had a long career like Garcia, there's probably some relief in that. So, it reminds me of when Cotto fought Saddam Ali, and it was the retirement tour. And the retirement tour to me never goes well. And it also at times kind of feels unnecessary.
You going to be watching this one, or are you going to be tuning into other things?
I mean, I'm interested in it, right? Like I've been here for the Danny Garcia show. I was there when he fought Zab Judah. I've been invested in it plenty. So I would like to see him go out and hopefully go out on his own terms and give us a little more, at least, than he was able to against Lara.
Good undercard, though. My favorite fight on the undercard, Gabe Rosado versus Von Alexander. I think that's a 50-50 fight that people are sleeping on. Richard Comey taking on
that's a good fight.
Albright. That's a fight. We got the return of Chris Colbert, and we got one other fight that really stood out to me. What am I missing? There was one other fight that I circled. I literally circle these fights. Oh, Damian Kanibe against Joey DeGueco. That's another good fight. So pretty solid.
DeGueco has not been great the last couple of times out, to be honest. I haven't seen the crafty veteran who, even if he's not going to win, he's going to make something happen. Just in the last couple times I've seen him, I just don't see the same guy.
I have the utmost respect for Joey because I remember him coming up. He's a tricky guy. Maybe but like he's one of those guys where it's like I don't feel super confident with a prospect getting in there, even though Kanibia is momentum. It's like he feels like a guy that has the tools to upset someone. So, any fight on that undercard stand out to you?
I think for me, it's probably Comey and God, who's he fighting again?
Woo Albright.
Yeah, that's probably the fight of the night for me, especially Albright coming off of the win over Keyshawn Calvin Davis. I think that, and I like Naheer. I thought he fought a good fight against Keyshawn. I think he's really talented. And I'm not quite sure what Comey has left in the tank, but this is oddly right. This is kind of the type of fight that Comey wins usually. As much as he's had some tough physical fights where he's kind of gotten beaten up, he has a history of winning these kinds of fights.
Okay, in the chat, I just want the truth said Diego Pacheco versus Kevin Sadjo will be taking place December 13th. Dakota, your thoughts on?
I just want to see Diego in a big one, man. I'm not saying Sadjo's not a good opponent, but I'm ready to see Diego right in the deep end, bro.
Selfishly, I'm slightly excited because it's in Stockton, which more than likely means that I will be at the fight. And I really like seeing Diego Pacheco. So I think that he's a good interview. He's a good hang.
It just feels like another lateral move, and that's fine. I'm glad he's staying active. I'm glad he's not waiting around for somebody. There's nothing wrong with taking Kevin Sadjo, but I'm ready, and I'm sure on some level he is ready to get in with some other top 10 guys, the Lacy Glaciuses of the world, and prove his mettle.
Well, I think let me do the research. I shouldn't just do half-baked research. Let's do full-baked research. Pretty sure this is a number one contender bout. So let's do the research right here and prove that I know something. I could be wrong, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I would doubt that Kevin Sadjo's in line for a number one contender spot. Again, that's not a slight on him. It's just that would surprise me.
Let's see. He's number 11, 10, and 8. So for the WBO, it's a battle between the 3rd and the 8th guy in the rankings, but I would have thought it was like a mandatory type bout.
Yeah.
So that's why we fact check. So we make sure that we give people accurate info. Finally, well, no, there's 2 more cards. God, we got MVP. They're returning to Texas, to Zone. Main event. I can't talk much about it. Yardis Juarez, who's the WBC junior flyweight champion, taking on who I deem a modern Mexican legend in Jessica Neri Plata.
Agreed.
Is the main event. I can't really talk about this fight. I don't have much to say.
I don't either. I don't know enough about Juarez, but I do think that Plata is an underrated, slept on, pound for pound type of champion.
I think that like the brilliance of MVP in this developmental series is someone like Plata who has good wins, right? I believe one of her wins is over Kim Clavel, who's just coming off a big win. Yep. She gets a chance to highlight a card that fans can see. You know, I think a lot of her career was kind of under the radar, not broadcast the same way. So I think that that's people like to bash MVP, but that's one of the positives. Then let's go deeper on this card because it does have a deep card. Co-feature I absolutely love. It's our guy Omar Juarez. You're a big Omar Juarez guy, Brownsville, Texas. He's taking on another Omar Rosario, who used to be signed with Top Dog. This is like the Spider-Man meme. This is 2 guys looking at each other saying, it's you. Very good chance this could be like a fight, a good fight.
I think it's going to be a great fight. I think they're both guys. Again, there's been some up and downs, but there's ups and downs when you take tough fights. I think that I know that's hard for a lot of boxing fans to understand, but when you take tough fights, there's ups and downs. So when Rosario steps up and takes on Elijah Flores and loses a decision, I don't think that means he needs to be discarded. And I think the same goes for Juarez. They're both guys that I think have a lot of skill. I think that there's still growth potential, and why not? And they've both shown the willingness to take the risk, and now they're going to take the risk against each other.
I think the X factor is Bob Santos. Juarez has Bob in the corner, and I feel like Bob is another one of these guys that doesn't get the credit, kind of like Mark Ramsey, where Bob, every time you see a Bob Santos fighter, they're in great shape.
He's also very quietly won a bunch of fights in a row. Like, I have not seen him since the Bartholomew fight, and I just looked at him on BoxRec and was like, well, shit, I didn't know that he's fought 5 times since then. And good on him for staying active.
That's a good team, right? It's like he loses the Bartholomew fight, so we're going to put him on the shelf. Nope. He just stays on undercards. And I think that's a brilliance of a guy like Omar Juarez. No ego, right? Doesn't need to be on the main card. Let me just bounce back. I'm going to get in this position. He's fighting an hour from home in Brownsville, Texas. It's strange because, like, Rosario, though, to me, hasn't looked bad. Like, I thought when he lost to Angel Rubularo, that was a very close fight that could have gone either way. Like, I didn't see that as, like, a definitive loss.
No, I didn't view Juarez's loss to Bartholomew as a super definitive loss. That was more of a draw type of fight for me.
A lot of people thought that he won it.
Yeah, and Bartholomew's he's a weird, awkward guy, and Juarez is a little bit younger and a little bit more of a traditional style. And he's taken that fight when he's like 23 years old, and you got to respect the balls.
So then we also have, let me get her name, the unified middleweight women's champion, Desley Robinson, facing Logan Haller, who I remember meeting in 2019. Desley Robinson, best known for beating Kay Scott to win the unified titles. Now she's with MVP. She's taken on Logan Haller. Logan Haller has been someone that I'd describe as a very hard worker in the gym. Hasn't always put it together. I'm expect her to really leave it all on the line, because this is like a big defining moment. She's trained around really elite people for most of her career. I don't know if she can win it, but I think she's going to overachieve, man. I think she's going to have that fight where sometimes fighters wait their whole life for a title shot and they might not win, but they give it all they've got. And I really get the feeling that Logan, this is going to mean a lot to her. And I know that maybe there's always a talent issue. Sometimes people can look at talent, but I think they're close enough in talent, and she's been around high enough people that I'm going to go on an upset and say Logan Haller upsets Robinson in this fight.
I'll have to take your word for it, brother. I'm not familiar with either of them, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I hope that happens, because that would just make me look like a genius. And then our friend of the program, Sharita Metcalf, is taking on Amanda Serrano-managed Crystal Rosado. Pretty interesting fight, It's definitely a crossroads fight for both.
Big time.
Metcalf coming off a loss for the title. Rosado, I'd say, has been moved pretty well, but she also has never taken this step in her career. What are your thoughts on this?
It's a lot to ask for Sharetta, man, coming off the type of loss that she did, but she's just always been down to take hard fights, and I have a ton of respect for it. I do think that Rosado is potentially special, and I would have to lean towards her. But if she's not that special, I think that Sharetta will just out-hustle her and want it more.
Finally, this is a card that I don't know if we can see, but this is like the Lukie and Dakota special. You'd love this card. Our guy, Albert Chop Chop Gonzalez, against Leonardo Baez, main event in Long Beach. How good of a fight is that?
Love that fight. It's a great step up. Baez has always been a competitor. Both of the Baez brothers have always been competitors. Sometimes it's tough for me to remember which one is which, but I know if a Baez is getting in the ring, they're going to give it their all. But Chop Chop, I think we've both kind of spoken on this a bunch. I think that he's really special in the things that he's doing at his age, this early in his career, with his footwork and how he creates offense. I just think he's a lot to handle, and there's a lot to grow on, much like our guy Steve Navarro. I just think he's a problem, and I love that he's already taken this kind of a fight.
I've got him as my best prospect in 2025. Not to bury the lead, but right now I think he's the best prospect.
That's an easy argument to make. I personally would probably lean towards Steve, just for me personally, but there's a couple of guys that have the argument, and he is undoubtedly one of them right now.
Maybe it's because I know Steven pretty well, and I'm always a little biased against the guys that I know. I judge them harder. But right, it feels like it's between him, Moreno Fendero of Eye of the Tiger, and Steven Navarro. Like those are the top 3 guys right now that when I look at the eye test and their ability to separate and their willingness to take hard fights, those 3 are the guys. Because people go, oh, what about the Dana Coolwell fight? Well, not a lot of young fighters take a fighter like that. Like there's a willingness to take a contender level.
I can't deal with that argument anymore, bro. Like if it doesn't go perfect or not, it's that you're showing your hand when you make that argument, bro. You just are. Look at Guido Vianello. It's just it's a irrelevant point at this point.
So I'm going to read to you the undercard on this card, which is Night of Champions, DMG Boxing Promotions. I really hope. Well, it's an upstart LA promotion, but I hope that there's some form of a stream because listen to how badass this card is. On top of Albert Gonzalez, you get Elvis Rodriguez on this card. You got Andreas Cortez. You got your guy, Otar Aransian, who I think that he beat Sterling Castro back in the day. We got Samuel Arnold versus Juan Barajas. That is a great fight. That's a banger. I might have to do a YouTube Shorts fight so just both fighters get to see that one and their families because that's Juan Barajas, I believe, is a 6'4" super middleweight that only lost to Daniel Blancas, who's a pretty good up-and-comer. And Samuel Arnold is a guy who had a lot of success in the amateurs, who's being moved pretty quick. That's a good fight. Your girl Perla Bazaldia, who just was with Top Rank, she's on the card, and Art Barrera Jr. is on this undercard. I really hope there's a way to watch this fight because this is the type of fight Lukie and Dakota love. It might not be like the scintillating matches start to bottom.
It's like an old Top Rank card.
Like an old Top Rank card. You get a good matchup at the top. You get some developmental fights. I really hope we get to see that because I love that card right there.
It's a great card.
Okay. Any other final thoughts that you want to say? Chat, do you got anything? Super lively chat today. A lot of people jumped in, bro.
Yes, thank you guys. We always love the third host when they show up. Listen, man, Fight Life with Mio Yoshida is going to drop on Friday, so definitely stay tuned in for that. I've been working real hard on it. Put a little heart and soul into it. You know what I mean? So enjoy that, and I will be doing first episode back of the Slip and Weave podcast in about 6 months. Just time and juggling a lot of things and wearing a lot of different hats. It's just something I haven't gotten to do as much, but looking forward to showing you guys that episode. I'm going to have my good friend Harry Gigliotti on, one of the liveliest, most talkative guys in all of boxing. Harry and I can fucking yap and yap. So I'm looking forward to catching up with him and you guys getting to see it.
We should do some type of gimmick to pull some people over. So next week we should do a segment on the Maya Yoshida Fight Life. We should do something for it. So between now and then we'll figure that out. But I'm tired of just these things dropping and we don't promote it properly on this show. So let's kind of go into that'll be next week. You can expect us to kind of do some branded content. It's also a lighter week now with the Thurman and Fundora.
But I'm excited for you guys to see. There was, I don't generally talk about this kind of stuff, but there was new challenges in this, working on, doing translations and subtitles and really trying to make sure that what she said is reflected as literally as possible. And I just don't think a lot of people have gotten to really hear from her and hear what she's thinking. And she's an inspirational person. She's really a hard worker. And she's a true professional and a veteran.
She's taking like an MMA fight coming up, right? Or what?
Yeah, she does. She has a kickboxing fight that she's going to take in November. She can't keep waiting for Trinika Johnson. She has no income. And so that's fortunately or unfortunately at the moment, that's the direction she has to take.
I mean, there's something about that I wouldn't say is beautiful, but like you hear a lot of fighters that just they wait on the system, and then it's like like when you see someone, I always kind of like it. Like maybe it's the punk rocker in me, the old punk rocker, but she's like, you know what? I'll just do a kickboxing match and beat someone up. Like there's a level of like, you see the fighter and the strong person in someone like that, where they're like, you know what, this probably isn't best for me, but I'm tired of just being.
But I got to get it somehow.
Yeah, like there's something about that like just speaks to the fighter and like a true fighter's ability, like where they're like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna fight. That's my answer to this. And it's like, there's a part of me that wants to fist bump and go, hell yeah. It's like,
but I do wish that those opportunities could come in the boxing world, because she's earned it. And on paper, not only has she earned it in the ring, on paper, she's earned it as being the #1 contender, which she has been since about February. And we can only hope that, she gets that shot. You may not think she's going to beat Chernika Johnson, but she's earned it.
Well, I think what's neat is you've kind of had a great run, to hype you up, of covering interesting, relevant women's boxers. You were hands-on with Shadeja Green, and now you're getting to know Mia Yoshida, and that's kind of a fun run that you're on, that you're capturing kind of like these great East Coast women's boxers that I think a lot of people are kind of like, oh, what's the monetization value of this fighter? Or why would I go there? And you're kind of getting arguably the prize of both of them. Like you have footage and documentation of like when they were their best.
Well, I really appreciate that. And listen, how many times have I said it on this show? I'm not a businessman, bro. I'm not a pocket watcher. I'm not going to talk about that type of thing. That's not what's interesting to me. And I know that if it's not what's interesting to me, it's not interesting to everybody. So what I'm interested in must be interesting to somebody,
Yeah. So there we go. And then the final thing I'm going to ask you, but we're going to get out of here. So we will see you next week, guys. Thank you for always tuning in.